Welcome to Peak TV. I'm Niv Dagan, Executive Director of Peak Asset Management, and we've got Vincent Algar, Chief Executive Officer of TMS. Vince, nice to see you.
Great to see you, Niv.
Vince, a lot of talk about the high copper price, gold. We're in a really, really strong position. Tell us what's driving it and what you're seeing on the ground.
Yeah, Niv, it's a great time for TMS, this copper and gold market. We're seeing an extreme amount of interest in the copper, in the availability of copper. The market is very short globally. It's become an absolutely critical mineral for the energy transition, and there's a lot of shortage in the market for everyday use as well as electrical use, which is growing rapidly. Obviously, the gold price has been playing its role in the geopolitical instability, so we've got everything sort of lining up, and this is a perfect situation for us to work on as we advance the TMS asset at Bluebird in the Northern Territory.
And Vince, I know that when we caught up in Melbourne only a few weeks ago, I mean, all eyes was on your current Bluebird exploration work and the discovery. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, look, we've got to look at the project up in the Northern Territory. It's in the Tennant Creek goldfield, which is a multi-million-ounce goldfield with a lot of copper produced over a number of years. But in the last 20 years or so, there's only been one really meaningful discovery made. And ours is basically the second one on top of that. So we haven't had any discoveries of the nature of this particular deposit at Bluebird, which include very, very high grades of copper and gold collectively in a Tennant Creek style ore body. Now, what is a Tennant Creek style ore body? It's an ore body that was historically mined in this area, and we've had some exceptional company makers in the area that have produced very high grades of gold and copper. And if the investors look at our drilling results, even from earlier in this year and late last year, they'll see that the ore bodies that we've discovered here at Bluebird have significant high grades of copper and gold in them. The other important thing from my point of view, having joined the company recently, is looking at the ability of this asset to produce a meaningful resource that's extractable by regular means. And in so many ways, this ore body does tick those boxes. Not only are we seeing the grades in copper and gold, we're seeing the way the grades are distributed, typical to an ore body of this type. And we've also released some early metallurgical results, which showed we can produce a concentrate of a commercial grade of copper and gold, which is really, really important when considering the product you'll produce from a future mine. So we go into this drill season very, very well equipped with what the asset is capable of and what the assets around it in the region have already produced. So super excited by the possibilities that Bluebird offers, not only in itself, but also along strike on the neighbouring, on our own ground, along strike east and west.
So Vince, I mean, all eyes has been on the recent capital raise. We're recently $4.8 million oversubscribed, a number of small cap funds, instos. We co-invested alongside our investors. Tell us a little bit about the use of funds for that raise, but also just remind us a little bit more about that exploration success that you've had at Bluebird. What sort of intervals and intercepts?
Yeah, you just got to look at the results over the last few years that we've had. You know, one of the ones we put out last year, early this year, was actually 61 meters at 2.3% copper and half a gram of gold, and really needs to be taken in context. Inside that intersection, we had 6.8 meters at 17% copper and half a gram of gold, and that's an exceptional intersection on a global level. That's being found at this time. Now, we've got multiple intersections like that across the body, 17 meters at 3.7, nearby 17 meters at 1.5, 14 meters at 7.5. These are, in terms of copper grades, and with carrying good gold along with them. And as I said before, we've put some early network into these holes and found that they deliver copper concentrates in the sort of 1.5 to 3 gram range of gold, and in the 24 to 27% copper range. So these are commercial concentrates. When you sell a copper concentrate to a trader, the gold will pay nearly 90% if it's over a gram. So we're already in a really, really good space in terms of our recovery and our drilling. In terms of what we're going to be using the funds for, I've touched on the two important things that the next couple of months will entail. One, is to get in the field as soon as we possibly can. So everyone knows the territory was really wet, and there's a lot of people up there at the moment trying to clear roads and get everything into place. And we're right in because we've got people in Tennant Creek. We're right on the forefront of that, making sure we can get into site. But there is a lot of roads to be cleared, so as soon as we get in, we will be on the ground. Our geologists are starting to mobilize to site as we speak, and we're starting to get all our plans ready and all our equipment ready to get on the ground. Drill companies being engaged. There's lots of interest from drilling companies, especially on this project that we're getting involved with. So all the ducks are lining up, and we just beg a bit of patience for people while we get the project running. Once we're in the field, we'll be drilling for some time. We've got a program that will allow us to do both RC and diamond drilling and start to strengthen the position of the ore body. But our objective in the field this year is not only to grow and stabilize the actual resource itself and make sure we can make it as big as possible at Bluebird, but it's also to look along strike. And one of our early announcements last year, we talked about opportunities both east and west of the main Bluebird discovery, because there's no doubt in my mind, after looking at this data, that there is another opportunities for repeats of Bluebird on the Tennant ground on the east and west. So we'll be actively looking for that. We've got a very strong technical team with the likes of John Dugdale, who's been intimately involved with the discovery of this project, and my resource geologist, project manager in the team, Chris Ramsey. So we've got a strong technical team pushing ahead. Parallel with that, the other bit will be the metallurgy, honing down our metallurgy that we've already done, strengthening that, making sure we've got commercial outcomes from that, start to illustrate those commercial outcomes and start to tie the bow together so we know that Bluebird itself will be able to sustain its own project and then make those additional discoveries along strike. So very exciting, pivotal year for TMS and for TMS shareholders, because we've got a tailwind with the copper and gold price, and we've got one of the best deposits around. So super exciting time to be involved.
Yes, I was going to ask you, why should investors buy the stock right now? But you've answered them pretty well. I mean, you've got obviously high gold price, copper price, Bluebird, drilling, diamond, everything's getting into the field, and then potentially a large JORC and a resource. So anything else you'd like to add before we touch on?
Well, just remember that it's a very interesting market from a company perspective, and multiple companies being in this play. One thing we saw happen a lot during the lithium space is we start to get people starting to look over each other's shoulders at what other people have got. So it's very important to be set in a stock that you like, because if someone else likes it too, then that's going to create further interest in the story, especially if those companies we see the Anglo-American takeover by at the moment and underway. Right? And why is that happening? It's because of copper. So if that's going to happen at the macro level, it's going to happen at the micro level. And remember, Tennant Creek is a world-class gold field. There's a handful of players in the area. You don't get your hands on assets like this very easily. And Tennant is 100% owned, owns this asset 100% going forward. So anyone who wants a piece of it, you're going to have to get on the register. So those people who are they're in a good place. Those people who want to get on board, you can run the copper story up from there. So drilling, metallurgical work, and a bit of intrigue in the marketplace is always never going to go a long way in the next couple of months. Super exciting.
Vince, always good to see you. Looking forward to catching up for a wine, and thanks for joining us at PTV.
Yeah, it'd be great again, Niv. Thanks a lot.